Yeah, I guess at least Wolfgang was a little bit more positive. A little bit of a shame. I don't know why this final sector, like, as soon as I got to 10, it was just like no more grip.
Max Verstappen's radio in Barcelona did not sound like frustration. It sounded like a warning. Because when a four-time world champion says the car has no grip, no balance, and is losing massive time in the corners, Red Bull cannot treat it like a bad session anymore. This is the driver who carried their dynasty. The driver who made impossible cars look easy. The driver who turned pressure into domination for years. But now, in 2026, the message is different. The Red Bull is overweight. The rear is unstable. The setup window is painfully narrow. Ferrari has surged ahead with Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes and McLaren are pulling away. And Barcelona, a track that exposes weak cars instantly, may have revealed the problem Red Bull feared most. Max is not just unhappy. He may no longer trust the car. And if Verstappen has stopped believing in the machine underneath him, Red Bull's biggest crisis is not coming. It is already here. Subscribe to the channel. The first mistake would be to treat Barcelona like one emotional radio message. It was much bigger than that. Because Verstappen's frustration did not appear from nowhere. It had been building since the beginning of the season, one session at a time, one corner at a time, one painful message at a time. And by the time Red Bull reached Barcelona, the radio was no longer just noise. It was evidence. The evidence of a champion who has spent months trying to explain the same problem in different ways, while the teams around Red Bull keep moving further ahead. That is why the entire Red Bull garage should be worried. Not because Max was angry. Max has been angry before. He has snapped on the radio before. He has demanded more from the team before. That is part of who he is, and Red Bull has lived with that intensity for years. The difference now is that the car is not answering back. In the past, Verstappen could complain, the team could adjust, and the performance would still be there. The car might be difficult, but it had a direction. It had a strength. It had something Max could lean on when the pressure arrived. This season, the Red Bull does not look like that. It looks fragile. Not fragile in the sense that it breaks every lap. Fragile in the sense that the car only seems to work inside a very small window. If the setup is right, if the track suits it, if the tires behave, if the balance lands perfectly, then maybe Verstappen can pull something from it. But if one piece is wrong, the whole picture falls apart. That is a terrifying problem for a Formula One team. Because a car with a wide operating window gives the driver freedom. It lets him adapt. It lets him attack different circuits, changing conditions, and unpredictable weekends. A narrow car does the opposite. It traps the driver. It forces him to drive around the weakness instead of through the corner. It makes every lap feel like a negotiation. It takes confidence away at exactly the moment confidence should be growing. And Verstappen's radio has been telling Red Bull that this is what he feels. No grip. No balance. Time disappearing in the corners. Rear instability that makes the car unpredictable. Those are not random complaints. They all point toward the same fear. The car is not giving Max the stable platform he needs. And that matters more for Verstappen than some people realize. Because Max does not need an easy car. He has never needed a soft, comfortable, gentle car. He can live with sharpness. He can live with aggression. He can drive a machine that feels nervous to almost anyone else. But there is a difference between a sharp car and an unstable car. A sharp car reacts quickly. An unstable car surprises you. A sharp car feels alive. An unstable car makes you wait. That waiting is deadly. Because the moment a driver waits, the lap time goes away. He brakes a little earlier. He delays the throttle. He turns with a little less belief. He protects the rear instead of attacking the corner. And in Formula One, those tiny compromises become a huge problem very quickly. Barcelona exposes that better than almost any circuit. It is not a place where a team can hide behind one strong straight, one lucky tire choice, or one short burst of grip. Barcelona asks for everything. Balance through long corners. Stability through high speed. Careful tire management. A car that can change direction without fighting itself. If your car is overweight, Barcelona makes you feel it. If your rear end is nervous, Barcelona makes you pay. If your setup window is too narrow, Barcelona gives you nowhere to hide. That is why this qualifying radio sounded so alarming. It confirmed that the same weaknesses Red Bull had been fighting all season were still alive at a track designed to expose them. And that is the part that should scare the team. Because earlier in the season, Red Bull could still tell itself there was time. The car was new. The regulations had changed. The setup knowledge was incomplete. The development path needed a few races. But Barcelona was supposed to be a test of whether the understanding had improved. Instead, Verstappen's radio suggested the answer Red Bull feared. Not enough. The problems had not vanished. The car still lacked the confidence he needed. The balance was still not where it had to be. The corners were still costing too much time. And when Max Verstappen says the car is losing time in the corners, that is not a minor comment. That is the heart of racing. Straight-line speed can help. Strategy can rescue certain weekends. A good start can change the first lap. But over a championship, cornering performance is where the truth lives. If the car cannot give the driver grip and balance through the corners, everything else becomes harder. The tires suffer. The lap time suffers. The race pace suffers. The qualifying position suffers. The strategy options shrink. And the driver begins every weekend from a place of damage control. That is not Red Bull domination. That is survival. And this is where the numbers make the story even more worrying. The Red Bull car has reportedly been running 6 to 7 kilograms above the minimum weight. In normal life, that sounds tiny. A few kilograms does not feel like a disaster. But in Formula One, it is a punishment that never stops. The car carries that weight through every braking zone, every acceleration point, every direction change, every long corner. It is like asking a sprinter to run with extra weight strapped to his body, then wondering why he cannot explode out of the blocks the same way. That extra mass is believed to cost around 0.2 of a second per lap. 0.2. That does not sound huge until you remember how close Formula One is. 0.2 can move a driver from fighting near the front to being trapped behind rivals. 0.2 can turn a comfortable qualifying session into a desperate one. 0.2 can make Verstappen look like he is overdriving, when in reality he is trying to recover time the car has already lost. And the weight problem does not exist alone. That is the key. Extra weight hurts the tires. Poor balance hurts confidence. Rear instability hurts corner entry and corner exit. Curb sensitivity limits how aggressively the driver can use the track. A narrow setup window makes every adjustment more risky. These problems feed each other. That is why Red Bull cannot simply point to one weakness and say, fix this, and everything returns to normal. The crisis is connected. And connected problems are the hardest to solve. Because when engineers change one part of the car, it may help one issue but expose another. A setup change that improves the rear might damage the front. A choice that helps curbs might hurt high-speed stability. A weight reduction might take time. An aerodynamic upgrade might shift the balance in a direction Verstappen still does not trust. That is the nightmare of a flawed concept. The team keeps working, but the driver keeps feeling the same core problem. And the radio becomes the place where that frustration escapes. This is why Red Bull should not hear Verstappen's Barcelona messages as just emotion. They should hear them as a deadline. Max is telling them that the car is not giving him the tools to fight Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren on equal terms. And the championship is not waiting for Red Bull to understand itself. Ferrari has moved ahead. Lewis Hamilton's arrival has added pressure and momentum. Charles Leclerc gives Ferrari another serious weapon. Mercedes is scoring heavily. McLaren is no longer just a hopeful challenger. The entire competitive order has shifted. Red Bull is no longer the team everyone is trying to survive. Red Bull is the team trying to catch up. That psychological change is enormous. For years, the garage operated from strength. The car was the reference. Verstappen was the standard. Rivals were reacting to Red Bull. Now Red Bull is reacting to everyone else. And that makes every radio message more painful. Because when Verstappen complains from the front, it can sound like perfectionism. When Verstappen complains while the team is slipping behind, it sounds like alarm. That is what Barcelona gave us. An alarm. Not a final collapse. Not proof that Red Bull cannot recover. But a public sign that the gap between what Verstappen needs and what the car provides is still too wide. And if Red Bull cannot close that gap soon, the problem becomes bigger than one qualifying result. It becomes a question about the whole project. Did Red Bull choose the wrong direction under the new regulations? Is the car too heavy to rescue quickly? Is the balance problem baked into the concept? Can they make it stable without making it slow? Can they give Verstappen a car he trusts before Ferrari and Mercedes move too far away? Those are the questions sitting underneath that radio. And that is why the first block of this story is not about a driver losing his temper. It is about a team hearing the same warning again, at the worst possible track, in the worst possible moment. Because when Max Verstappen says the car has no grip and no balance, Red Bull can explain it once. When he keeps saying it, race after race, the explanation starts to sound weaker. And the warning starts to sound like the truth. But the next warning is even more serious, because Verstappen's radio is only the sound of the problem. The real problem is the car underneath it. And that is where Red Bull's situation becomes frightening, because the team is not dealing with one simple weakness. It is dealing with a car that seems to punish itself in several different ways at the same time. The weight hurts the balance. The balance hurts the tires. The tires hurt the grip. The lack of grip hurts Verstappen's confidence. And once Verstappen cannot fully trust the rear of the car, every corner becomes a negotiation instead of an attack. That is not how Max Verstappen wins. Max wins by committing earlier than others. By trusting the front. By controlling rotation. By feeling the rear move just enough, but not so much that it surprises him. He does not need a car that feels gentle. He needs a car that feels honest. And right now, the Red Bull does not sound honest. That is what the radio is telling us. When Verstappen says the car has no balance, he is not just saying it is slow. He is saying the car is not speaking clearly to him. One corner may feel manageable. The next may feel unstable. One lap may offer grip. The next may disappear without warning. For a driver, that is exhausting. Because speed comes from belief. The driver has to believe the car will be there before the car proves it. He has to turn in, commit, and trust that the rear will not step out at the wrong time. If he waits for confirmation, the lap is already gone. That is why rear instability is so destructive. It attacks the driver before it attacks the stopwatch. And for Red Bull, the timing could not be worse. Because the rest of the grid is not giving them time to solve this calmly. Ferrari is not waiting. Mercedes is not waiting. McLaren is not waiting. The entire front of the field has moved into the new regulations with more confidence than Red Bull expected, and now the team that once controlled the championship is being forced to chase answers in public. That is why Barcelona qualifying mattered. It did not simply show Red Bull was behind. It showed the car's weaknesses at a circuit that rewards exactly what Red Bull is missing. Barcelona demands clean aerodynamic balance through long corners. It demands stability when the tires are loaded for several seconds at a time. It demands a car that can handle direction changes without upsetting the driver. It demands efficiency, rhythm, and confidence. If a car is overweight, Barcelona makes every direction change feel heavier. If a car struggles with rear stability, Barcelona turns long corners into stress tests. If a car has a narrow operating window, Barcelona punishes every tiny setup mistake. So when Verstappen's messages sounded worried there, Red Bull could not dismiss it as the circuit being strange. Barcelona is not strange. Barcelona is honest. And that honesty is what makes the situation brutal. Because if the car cannot give Verstappen what he needs on a track like this, then the problem is not just one weekend. It points toward a deeper mismatch between the car's design and the demands of the season. That is the part Red Bull must fear. The car may not be broken in a simple way. It may be fundamentally limited. And those are very different things. A broken part can be replaced. A wrong setup can be adjusted. A bad session can be reviewed overnight. But a fundamental limitation means the team has to rethink the path it chose. It means upgrades may need to solve several problems at once. It means the car's weakness may be built into the concept, not just added by one poor decision. That is why the reported weight issue matters so much. 6 to 7 kilograms over the minimum might sound almost harmless to someone outside Formula 1, but inside the sport, it is a constant tax. The car pays that tax every time it brakes. It pays it every time it accelerates. It pays it every time Verstappen asks it to change direction. And over a lap, that tax becomes time. Around 0.2 per lap is not a small gap. It is the kind of gap that turns a front-row car into a second-row car. It turns a race-winning strategy into damage control. It turns Verstappen from hunter into firefighter. And the worst part is that the weight does not just make the car slower in a straight line. It changes how the whole car behaves. More weight means more stress on the tires. More stress means more heat. More heat means less grip. Less grip means the driver has to manage instead of attack. And if the rear is already unstable, that extra stress makes the car feel even less predictable. That is how one weakness becomes 5. This is why Red Bull cannot just rely on Verstappen to rescue every weekend. For years, Max made problems look smaller than they were. He could take a difficult car and still place it somewhere frightening. He could stretch strategy. He could qualify above expectation. He could make rivals feel like Red Bull always had something left.